Happy Monday, everyone, and a happy NBA playoff Monday it is. I'm here with my guy, Sam Oshtry of The Score. My name is Sean Barnard here on Fox Sports The Gambler, and we have plenty of playoff action to get into. So, Sam, before we hit the ground running here, there was a lot of hype leading up to this opening week of playoffs, a lot of blowouts on the table, maybe not what exactly we were hoping for. I think some of what we expected, some surprises here. So, to you straight up, did the opening week live up to the hype for you?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't care about the blowouts necessarily. Like people are chirping about the Thunder 50-point win. Like that's what happens when you have that lopsided matchups. When you have a historically great team in the Thunder taking on a team that maybe shouldn't have even been in the playoffs in the Grizzlies with how they finished the regular season. So I think so. Like even like the Lakers Wolves game, that game was interesting to watch through all 48 minutes, I thought, pretty much. Like, even though the Wolves were pretty much in control that entire second half, Lakers make a late push around the midway point of the fourth quarter. But I thought that was an exciting game throughout. Like, the Warriors are up 21-point. Rockets come all the way back. I thought it was a great, and we have some really competitive games to get to. I thought it was a great opening weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think there are better days to come or bigger moments as far as the playoffs are concerned. So still getting the feet wet, getting things underway. And before we dive into the specifics of each of these matchups here, got to ask about your viewing experience here because you are not just alone checking things out from the TV on Saturday. You did make the trip up to New York to see one of the better games, probably maybe the best game of the opening round between the Knicks and Pistons. What was your experience like taking that in from Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, it was awesome. That arena, I've been to a lot of basketball venues at all different levels. That arena is second to none. It's just special. It's just different in the playoffs. It's the Mecca for a reason, the world's most famous arena. And the place was going bananas in the fourth quarter. Like you kind of felt a nervous energy, I'd say, throughout the first three quarters. And it kind of reflected how I think a lot of Knicks fans and NBA fans felt about the Knicks season, where there wasn't as much excitement as last season. I think the team was different. The identity of the group was different. There was kind of more expectations. So you kind of felt that nervous energy, especially as it was a competitive game. The Pistons took a little bit of a lead throughout those first three quarters. But the fourth quarter was absolutely bananas. I mean, it was just electric, wild, whatever adjective you want to use there. It was incredible. Like the energy in that place is just different. It's second to none. It's that special of an arena when you're in the building for a playoff game. It's an amazing atmosphere. And a lot of times you could say it's a building win. Like throughout that 21-0 run, like the momentum comes from that fan base and that building. And it was wild. It was awesome to be there. Anytime you can get to MSG for a playoff game, it's special.
Yeah, that is incredible there. I am jealous of that. I still got to make my way up there for a game. Have not been yet, so certainly one that is right there on the bucket list. And let's dive into a little bit of each of these games. So to set the table for each, I will go in order from the weekend. The Pacers did take down the Milwaukee Bucks 117-98. A little bit of chirping at the end of that with Dame Lillard on the bench, which I liked. Then the Denver Nuggets producing a 112-110 victory over the Clippers. Excited to talk about that one. A 123-112 victory by the Knicks, which you alluded to there. The Timberwolves beating the Lakers 117-95. Then yesterday, we have the Thunder blowing out the Grizzlies 131-80, the largest playoff franchise win in Thunder history, the largest playoff loss in Grizzlies history, and the biggest margin of victory in any game on history in NBA history there. We also had the Celtics defeat the Magic 103-86, the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the Heat 121-100, and then last night winding things down, the Golden State Warriors beating the Houston Rockets 95-85. So Sam, I'll have you lead us here. Out of all those games, which one was the most notable takeaway? So which game one do you think is going to dictate the series out of these matchups?
I think, honestly, not just because I was in the building, but the Knicks Pistons. And I think let's just dive into that one first, I guess, if you want to. Look, we had this conversation. OG Anunoby had Cade Cunningham in prison. I mean, that was an incredible individual defense performance. And Cade hadn't seen a lot of those coverages where, especially from the Knicks during the regular season, where OG was just, this defensive intensity was on a different level. But it wasn't just that. Like they tried to target Brunson a lot in that first quarter. And the Knicks did a great job with their coverage of where Brunson would hard hedge, but OG is such a good screen navigator that he got back and Brunson would hard hedge and then he would recover to his guy. And OG would return and just have Cade Cunningham in a prison. Like Cade really, really struggled. 3 points in the first half. And he was the physicality. Like everyone talked about the physicality for the Pistons was going to bother the Knicks, and I think it did to some degree in the first half. But it was also the vice versa. Like OG Anunoby is one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA, and he had Cade Cunningham. He locked Cade Cunningham up for pretty much the entire first half. And you could even say most of the game. And Mikal Bridges had some good shifts on him as well, but it was mostly OG that was his primary defender. So I was so impressed with that. And I just think that I know you disagree, which is why I wanted to start with this, but I think the Knicks set the tone of like, all right, you guys think you're going to be physical, but we're also going to be physical defensively. We have two of the best wing defenders in the NBA. Cade Cunningham has never played in a playoff game before. And we can talk about Cat and the Cat and Mitch lineups, how great those were. But I was impressed with the Knicks, how they set the tone on Cade Cunningham coming into this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, that fourth quarter in particular, the way the tides turned and way the complete control of that game shifted was certainly a notable takeaway there. And we obviously know you're kind of viewing this series a little bit more through the Knicks lens, where I am through the Pistons lens, to make the Pistons case here and why, like, obviously this was a missed opportunity by Detroit. There's no way around it, that you did have a lead going into that fourth quarter, that you built up a lead as significant as up to 9 heading into that there, which was a big deal for them. They had them on the ropes and were unable to finish the job. I kind of think this is what they needed. It was a wake-up call in this first game. They did have to get their feet wet for playoff intensity. Cade Cunningham, and while he still ended with, I believe, 21, 11, and 6 or something right around there, not his best game. He will be better than that. And a lot of these were self-inflicted issues by Detroit, I felt. The turnovers were a huge story to me, and that's where I really thought the game fell apart. They finished with 21 on the game. You will not win playoff games when you're turning the ball over 21 times against a team like the New York Knicks there. So definitely a statement performance the way they came on in that fourth quarter. But for me, I think like what it confirmed more than anything, we should be buckling up for a series that neither one of these teams is backing down.
Yeah, I'm on the other side because the Pistons didn't take advantage of a Tobias Harris.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just start with this. How do you feel that Tobias Harris, in his first playoff game with the Pistons, scored more than he ever did in his playoff performances with the Sixers? That's just classic Sixers luck there. But you have to take advantage of a Tobias Harris playoff performance like that. Tim Hardaway Jr. was awesome. The fact that you had the Knicks in foul trouble. Josh Hart had 3 fouls early. Cat had 3 fouls at the start of that third quarter. Mikal Bridges had 3 fouls at one point. You had to take advantage of that foul trouble because the Knicks, for as much as people say Tom Thibodeau refuses to go to his bench, he was forced to go to his bench, and he played 4 bench guys because of the foul trouble they were in. And I really want to focus on the Karl-Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson lineup. And I think Tibbs went to it reluctantly because they only played 47 minutes together in the regular season, and everyone's just been clamoring for that lineup because they want to see Cat play the 4 and Mitch play the 5. So he was forced to go to that lineup when Josh Hart had 3 fouls in that first half, and it was an incredibly impressive lineup. When Mitch was at the 5, Cat was at the 4, they had 100 defensive rating. Phenomenal defensive rating. Their net rating was plus 11. And I thought it really worked, and they had a lot of success with that. So the bench, which everyone was like, that's not going to be a factor in the series for the Knicks. The bench really stepped up. We know what Cam Payne did with that flurry in the second half, which it's funny that he did that against the Knicks for the Sixers last year. And now he's doing it for the Knicks. That guy just, even if I don't care how old he is, at some point, just sign him late in the season.
He's the man.
And let him go on a playoff run with your group, because he's just, I don't really think he's a very good player, and his shot is really ugly, but he's made for the playoffs, and he's quite literally an Energizer bunny. Yeah. But I don't think the Pistons took advantage of some great performances from the stars. And like I said, like, this is Cade's first playoff appearance. I don't trust that he's going to figure it out and turn around. The coverages for the Knicks were incredibly impressive. And OG Anunoby is one of the best individual defenders, and he was being so physical and locking Cade up. So I'm not really convinced that he's going to turn this series around. And the last thing I'll say is, Brunson struggled early in that first half too, and then he injures himself, and he comes back and is just, he's as tough as they come, and was phenomenal in that fourth quarter.
Did you see Thibs' quote, by the way?
Yeah, when he said put on the cape, or he put on. Thibs rarely makes jokes. He really thought he cooked with that one, but my point is that on the Pistons side, you have Jalen Brunson, who I talked about how they tried to target him earlier in that first quarter, and the Knicks were really good with the defensive coverages of hedging and recovering and getting back and letting OG navigate those screens and get back to Cade. They didn't target him at all pretty much in that fourth quarter, especially when the Knicks went on that 21-0 run. And not only did they not target the Knicks' weakest defender, he had a bum ankle. Like, he was limping out there, and he was in spurts. He was great offensively, but he was clearly limping out there. Went back to the locker room for a reason, changed his shoes for a reason. He was hurt, and the Knicks weren't even targeting him and weren't putting him in action. Or excuse me, the Pistons weren't targeting him and weren't putting him in action. So I thought that was pretty poor coaching execution from them. And I was just disappointed with that. But look, I think the Knicks matched the Pistons' physicality. I thought Cat was phenomenal defensively. Something the Knicks did, what they changed, they didn't really put Cat in drop coverage. When Mitch was out and Cat was playing the 5, they really had Cat come to the level of the screen on his ball screens, and he was great in ball screen coverage, which was the concern with him coming in to this season and this playoffs. So I was really impressed with the Knicks defensively, with how they handle the Pistons' physicality. I don't think this is going to be a series.
Yeah, and for all the trash that I've talked on Karl-Anthony Towns' defense, did finish with 4 steals and 2 blocks in that game. He did exceed my expectations there, but it is a 7-game series for a reason here. Now, you mentioned Tobias Harris. To fully set the table on that, Tobias Harris scored 22 points at halftime for the Pistons. To use that 22 number, he did not score 22 points in his past 13 playoff games for the Sixers. He reached that total in just 11 of his 57 games overall played in the playoffs in Philadelphia. He did ultimately finish with just 25 in that game, so pretty fitting 3-point second half. But shout out to Tobias, man. I have no hatred in my heart for Tobias now that he's out there. Shout out to him. And campaign, man, electric, absolutely electric. Before we move on, they are back in action tonight. It is a 6.5-point spread in favor of the New York Knicks. From the way you're talking, I believe you expect them to roll once again.
Yeah, I don't know about roll, but I do think they win and cover that number again tonight. Look, I think they found something with those Karl-Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson lineups, and I really hope Thibs doesn't only use that when they're in foul trouble. I really hope he consistently goes to that. Landry Shamet got some minutes. He didn't really do much, but he got some minutes. So they're playing guys off the bench now. Jalen Brunson's ankle with 1 day rest, it could be a concern. But we've also seen Jalen Brunson start series out slow in general. And he was phenomenal in that 4th quarter, but he really struggled in the first half. And he had some bunnies that he missed around the rim. But of course, the Pistons' plan was to be ultra physical with him. And when you get those bumps and bruises going to the basket, it's harder to actually finish around the rim once you get there. So that was their plan. I just think Jalen Brunson is the best player in the series. The Knicks are the way more talented group, and they can match. We saw them. They can match the Pistons' physicality, their defensive intensity. And if the Knicks continue to show up, especially back at home, I think the Knicks win tonight. And like I said, I think this is a 5-game series.
Yeah. All right. Well, we will see. I do think I would not shock me if the Knicks win again tonight. I do think when this series gets to Detroit, that it gets evened up. That I think it goes 2-2, and then it becomes a series from there. But
you think it's 2-2 going into Game 5?
I do. I think honestly, my prediction is Knicks win tonight, and then Detroit takes both back home, and then we got a 3-game series. Is what I'm thinking.
Wow. All right.
But we will see. Ultimately, time will tell. So we'll keep it rolling a little bit, not bog down too much on any series. I did want to throw out, just aside from a team, purely individual player, best performance that you saw, because mine does have to involve this game.
I think so. So can I throw out nominees? Let me throw out 4 nominees to you, and feel free to add.
Okay.
And then you can pick or add. So Jalen Brunson,
sure.
Considering the fact that he really started out struggling and was really inefficient around the rim, but he hurt his ankle and then was a hero in the 4th quarter, which is phenomenal. The most clutch player in the NBA, did his thing at what we've seen time and time again in the 4th quarter. So I thought that was a phenomenal performance from him. Curry, I mean, we'll get to the Rockets Warriors game, but Curry was phenomenal last night, answered every run. James Harden in a loss, I thought was awesome. And then also Paolo Banchero, I thought, in a loss. So those are my 4 nominees for best performance of the weekend.
I like it. I looked at it as kind of an exceeding my expectations. Which guy changed the series in a way that I did not think was possible? And I'm giving it to my guy, Terry Johnson, campaign for stepping up and delivering. I do think like he completely spun that game, and that's what he does, man. He had this quote from back during his time in Philadelphia that still kind of sits with me after he did turn a game for the Sixers, that he just said, energy costs nothing. And that's how he lives life, man. He completely changed that game as far as like the stats of it, what he ended with off the bench in 15 minutes of play, had 14 points, 1 assist, 1 steal, was a plus 23 in a game that they ended up winning by 11. So shout out to
Can I tell you a quick story? So
sure.
I was at Knicks Wizards preseason game back in October. Sitting behind the Knicks bench, and I was with a friend there, and we were just talking ball, and I was talking about campaign, and I'm really not a fan of him as a player throughout the regular season. I have to eat my words when he's that good in the playoffs, and he really is an energizer, buddy. Like I see the value in that, but I'm not a fan of him as a player overall. So I was talking smack about campaign to my friend, just I didn't really like his game, this and that. Like he had a good playoff moment for the Sixers, but whatever. And I realized right after his wife is sitting directly behind me, like directly behind me. And she's talking to her friend about him and like the relationship, whatever, because they're sitting directly behind me. And I'm talking loudly to my friend. It's like right behind the Knicks bench at a preseason game. And I was like, wow, that's unfortunate. But
That's
look,
tough.
I would want him on my team in a playoff run. I can't deny that.
Yeah, there we go. How about we spin this the other direction? So we started positive. Let's get negative. Was there anybody, and I think there is an obvious one we will ultimately conclude on, but lay out some candidates for me. Who are the worst playoff performers in the opening game?
Yeah, all right. So I'll give you 5 nominees here.
Love it.
Of course, number 1 is Kyle Kuzma.
He did it. Tony Snell Club.
The 20 trillion. 20 trillion for our guy Kuz. Austin Reeves, I thought was really bad. We'll get to that series. Cade Cunningham, I thought really struggled. And we talked about OG's incredible individual defensive performance and how we saw different coverages when the Knicks were sending doubles, which they didn't do in the regular season, and just added extra defensive attention in his first playoff game. And another guy who was in his first playoff game who I have been hammering to fade this guy at all costs. Jalen Green was awful, just awful for the Rockets last night. And the last one is Michael Porter Jr., who was also awful, finished with 3 points for the Nuggets and was actually benched. So those are my 5 candidates.
Yeah, shout out to Adelman for benching him too, because a lot of coaches wouldn't there. He was brutal, Michael Porter Jr. I do think like the honest answer from as far as relative to expectation and how much they delivered to their team, I think Jalen Green is the answer that he's got to give you something. And as far as like that matchup overall, when we get to like, we'll dive into it deeper in a second, but obviously the Rockets need an offensive punch and he just has to be the guy to provide it. To take it a step further about Jalen Green, I think how the rest of this series goes dictates whether or not he is with the Rockets next year, whether or not he is a part of this core. They're going to have to make some pretty significant decisions about that young talent. Not a strong start to the playoffs. Now, as I mentioned a couple of times, it is a 7-game series for a reason. So we'll dive deeper into that for a second. As far as the Kyle Kuzma outlook, to set the table for just how bad he was, in game 1, the Bucks were 62.8 points per 100 possessions better when Kyle Kuzma was off the court. Just think about that for a second. That their net rating with Kuzma on the court, it was an 87.2 offensive rating, a 144.4 defensive rating. That's negative 57.2 net rating. When he was off the court, the Bucks had a 105.6 offensive rating, a 100 defensive rating. That's a plus 5.6 net rating. A 62.8 net rating swing is absolutely absurd stuff, especially in a playoff game. So if you're the Bucks, and by the way, Doc Rivers after the game,
I was gonna go there.
Talking about like, well, he just didn't get the ball enough. It does amaze me how often that man just seemingly forgets that he is the head coach of the basketball team that he's talking about. But talk about Kuz for a second.
Yeah, he needs to be featured in the offense more. It's your offense, dude.
Yeah, you are the coach, man.
You should be featuring him more on the offense. Yeah, I mean, look, like Kuz is an incredibly inconsistent player. I do think he has value, and he's an easy guy to clown. I think because of his outfits. I think recently because of his politics, and for a lot of different reasons, he's an easy guy to clown. And
family life.
What's that?
Family life.
Yeah, I think people are going to take advantage of that when they see the opportunity. But he was awful. Like you just laid out those numbers and those on off stats. He was awful. But he's also, and we'll talk about this series a little later, but without Dame Lillard and like how much Giannis has to be featured in the offense, Giannis really has to carry. It's harder for those shots because Kyle Kuzma doesn't create his own shots. Like guys have to create shots for him. He needs a table setter to create shots for him. And when Giannis and that Dame pick and roll were really humming earlier this season, and after the trade deadline when Kuz came around, Kuz had some really good performances. But like all those were the what that opened up for him when Dame and Giannis were running pick and rolls, inverted pick and rolls, all of it. It really opened up Kuz's game. Now it's like without Dame there and how much defensive attention is on Giannis, it's hard for Kuz to really create his own shots. And I mean, he was just awful. He had no impact on the game. Like the stats sometimes don't always tell the story. We'll talk about Draymond Green, who didn't put up a great stat line, but I thought was phenomenal last night. The stats do tell the story for this case. Like Kuz had no impact on the game. You barely even noticed he was out there on either end. It was just a classic bad Kuz performance.
And to give him full credit, not only was it zeros across the board, he got to the free throw line and missed both those as well. So shout out to Kyle Kuzma, man. At his core, he needs to remember like he's an energy guy as well. And I think that gets lost in the shuffle when we see bad Kuzma, where he starts feeling himself a little bit. You got to be a dude that attacks the glass, creates extra possessions, do the little things for the team. Will be interesting to see what his level of opportunity is in game 2 there.
I mean, Giannis had 36 points Do you know what the other 4 starters combined for?
It was 12, right?
14.
Oof.
It's
That's brutal.
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like 2 of them, including Kuz and Torian Prince, had 0 points. Like it's impossible to win basketball games when your starters contribute that few. They just don't contribute at all. Like
Yeah.
really just don't contribute at all. And that's why they need Dame back to even compete in this series. But we'll see where it goes.
Any thoughts on the chirping from Dame Lillard from the bench, picking up a technical? They obviously need him back on the floor. There seems to be some optimism. Does Dame Lillard completely change this series for you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Okay.
absolutely. Because, like I said, he opens up shots for other guys. Like him, his and Giannis's presence, and those guys running the pick and roll, which they ran a lot more this season than they did last season, and it's really effective for the Bucks. It opens so many more shots for guys like Torian Prince, guys like Bobby Portis, guys like Kyle Kuzma. So yeah, I mean, it's everything. Damian Lillard is an awesome player. Defensively, not so much. I hope he comes back for game 2. If he's coming back for game 3 and they're down 0-2, it's going to be hard to come back.
Yeah.
But I will say I love the chirping from Dame. Like he
Me
knows
too.
he's coming back and he's ready to go. We know Tyrese Halliburton is a front runner chirper. Like he talks a lot of smack, but he is the ultimate front runner. And he did this in a game where he only scored 10 points and was 0 for 7 from 3. It's not like Tyrese Halliburton was carrying the Pacers offensively here or had some great performance. He was chirping while his team was carrying him, and he really struggled offensively in that game. I mean, we know what he does as a passer, as a playmaker. He 12 assists. We get all that. But he struggled offensively for the most part in this game, and he was still chirping Dame. I love it, and I hope Dame comes back for game 2.
Yeah, I want all the smoke possible. So I love all the chirp. I thought we'd get a little bit more of it in this opening game. I thought with the Rockets Rockets and Warriors there'd be a little more. I thought Pistons Knicks. There's obviously still been some, but I think all these series are going to ratchet up a couple notches as
Well, I think what you're seeing is
Mhm.
there's teams that their identity is their defense and physicality, and they were trying to be enforcers. And what you saw from the Knicks and we saw from the Warriors is they kept incredible composure. Like
Yeah.
they knew that was their plan, and you can't let it get to you. And like even when Malik Beasley shoved Jalen Brunson when the game was over with 5 seconds left, it's like a ridiculous, unnecessary shove. Like Jalen Brunson has the ultimate composure to not overreact to that. Like I thought Draymond did a really good job with his composure last night, and their whole plan is to try to get in their heads and let the physicality beat you. But that was their identity during the regular season that won them a lot of games. These other teams who are actually better offensively can match your physicality in a playoff series. Like everyone's intensity just rises. So I thought those two teams did a great job with their composure.
Let's stick right there with this last matchup here last night between the Rockets and Warriors. So it did ultimately ended 95-85 victory. The Warriors over the Rockets here. The lowest scoring matchup of the entire opening round thus far. The Rockets held just 13 points in the second quarter, while the Warriors outscored them 29-13. Where that game got a little bit of a part there, but ultimately it was a battle throughout there. So what was your biggest takeaway from last night's game? I thought a pretty fitting end to the overall weekend. Thoughts on game 1?
Let's start with the backcourt. Like Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet were just horrible.
Yep.
They combined for 7 for 34 from the field.
Oof.
That's 20% combined field goal percentage for those two. I mean, you're not going to win games when your backcourt is that ineffective. And specifically Jalen Green, we talked about him. It was his playoff debut, and he was awful. Like it was just he's an inefficient player in general, but he couldn't even get to his spots. The Warriors defense did a great job of forcing him into difficult twos time and time again. And he was just bad all around. My problem was when the Warriors were up 23 at one point, the Rockets make a huge run in the start of that fourth quarter into the middle of the fourth quarter. That run came with Jalen Green on the bench, and it was with their double big lineup with Steven Adams and Alperen Sengun. Like the Rockets have a horrible half-court offense. They just do. Their half-court offense is incredibly ineffective, and they don't have enough creators and enough guys who can beat people off the dribble to create shots for others. So their half-court offense is just bad. How they made that comeback was just crashing the offensive boards. Like they dominated the offensive boards. I believe they won the rebounding battle by 16, and they had 22 offensive rebounds. That's how they get their shots. That's how they made their comeback. But then they take Steven Adams out of the game and put Jalen Green back in. And that's when their offense just collapsed in the clutch. I would have kept Steven Adams in that game. I get Jalen Green's you're one of your leading scorers, and you don't want to bench him in a crunch time moment. But you made that comeback. You got back in the game with your double big lineup, and it was strictly because your best chance to score is just shooting bad shots and letting those guys crash the glass and creating second chance opportunities. And that's how they got back in the game. But then Ime Udoka went completely away from that. Like he took Steven Adams out of the game, and then they went back to their smaller lineup, which isn't necessarily small, but smaller. And Jalen Green was just awful down the stretch like he was for most of the game. So I wanted them to continue with that double big lineup and not bring Jalen Green back in the game, because that's how you came back in the game. And that's your best chances to score at this point. It's just crashing the glass because you can't create any good looks in half court, as we saw.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there that I think they really found something really the entire second half of the season, but especially of late, and especially in this matchup with the double big lineup with Steven Adams and Şengün. I know that the plus minus does not always tell the story, but Steven Adams was the only member of the Rockets to end with a positive plus minus last night. He was a +4 in a game that they lost by 10. He finished with 12 rebounds, 5 of them being offensive. And by the way, he gets like the back-breaking offensive rebounds, I would describe it, where he'll get a back-to-back and all of a sudden it's a kick out, settle, everybody take a deep breath. You feel the impact of those.
And I didn't think the Warriors did a bad job like boxing out a rebound. They were just tiny. When they have Draymond at the 5, they're tiny. Like there's nothing they can do where you have those double bigs crashing the glass.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think it was anything specific, but that is more of a reason to reinforce why you have to go to this if you're Houston. If you're going to beat this team, there is no world where the Rockets can win this series if it is an offensive shootout. The only world that they have to win this, if it is a muck it up, play defense, earn every single point. And that has been the Rockets' identity. Now, with all that being said, there is no Steph Curry on this Houston Rockets team. And that to me was really the story of last night. Some of the shots that Steph hit, you can't play any better defense than what Houston was doing. And I will say what stood out to me in this, for the first time, it is too early in the series to start seeing from Amin Thompson specifically, the shoulder slump, the how did he hit that? It's already starting. And when you start to see that from a team, which we've seen time and time again in Steph Curry's career, that's a problem. I did not like seeing that in game 1.
Look, I thought the Rockets did a really good job early on Steph Curry. Started 0 from 3 from 3. And we saw that during the regular season games where they were incredibly physical with him, pretty much face guarding him, picking up almost 94 feet. But what really killed the Rockets in the first half is their turnovers. They had 11 turnovers in the first half, 16 for the game. And the Rockets aren't a team that typically turns the ball over a lot, but the Warriors defense is incredible at forcing turnovers. They were 4th in the regular season in opponent turnover rate. So what that does when the Rockets are turning the ball over is you're going to get better looks for Steph Curry when they're in transition. It's harder to locate Steph Curry and pick him up and start face guarding him and be physical with him the second he reaches half court when you're in transition, because that's when the chaos is. You're locating different guys, and that's when Steph Curry kind of started to get going later in that first quarter into that second quarter, because the Rockets were turning the ball over constantly, and the Warriors were getting good looks all in points in transition for Curry. And that's really, once he starts going, sees a few go through, it's really over.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's exactly what went down there. I after last night, like as far as a result that did mean something to me, my optimism for Houston, like having a chance in this series, kind of went out the window. That I don't see a world where the Rockets come back in this. I think like that was more or less kind of how you want the game script to go if you are going to have a chance in this game, and it never felt like they were able to really take control. Do you see that differently?
Yeah, not differently. I'm kind of like in the middle somewhere, because on the one hand, it's like if you're going to dominate the rebounding battle and get that many second chance opportunities, you don't expect your guards to combine or your backcourt to combine for 7 for 34 from the field again. Like it's almost impossible to be that bad again.
But they've kind of been like, this is who Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet have been.
It is. But like
Brunson
that bad. Like if they hit like 3 more shots in that fourth quarter, they probably win the game. And the other thing was the Rockets planned defensively, and the Warriors went zone defensively, which they really hadn't done that much throughout the regular season, but that really hurt the Rockets. The Rockets had no idea to score against the Warriors zone. So you think with more adjustments, with more time, they're going to figure out what more ways to score against the Warriors zone. Maybe they're not a great half-court offense or offense in general, so you don't know. But I will say, like, the part of the Rockets' plan, especially in that fourth quarter, was like, let the supporting cast beat you. Like, we're going to load up on Curry. We're going to load up on Jimmy Butler. Is Moses Moody going to hit shots? Who hit a huge clutch 3 late in that game? Is Brandon Podziemski going to hit shots? Who had a bunch of big shots? Yeah, I thought he played really well. He had a bunch of big shots. is Gary Payton. He hit a huge clutch three in the fourth quarter. So they're really letting those guys beat them. Are those guys consistently that supporting cast that a lot of those guys are young, not a lot of playoff experience? Are those guys consistently going to hit those clutch shots? That's what the Rockets are banking on throughout a 7-game series. I don't know how that's going to go. But like you're right that everyone was talking about the Houston's physicality and the Houston's defense. Over the last 2 months of the season, the Warriors have been one of the best defensive teams in the league. Like
Yeah, and the beginning
they're
of
a
the
great
season.
defensive team too.
The first, like, I want to say 20 games, they were off the charts with their defensive rating, and they were like rotating in. Steve Kerr was playing everybody, and they just were finding ways. So, like, the point being, this Warriors team can play those cards in a way that the Rockets can't play the other way from Golden State's perspective. Once the lid fully comes off for the Warriors, where their offense starts flowing, I don't see any answer for this Rockets team. So I thought that was probably the most discouraging loss for me last night.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. But I want to talk about Draymond Green for a second, who I don't have his stat line in front of me, but it was like maybe 2 or 4 points, like 6 boards, 3 assists. Not
4
a pretty
points,
stat line.
4 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals, and a block in 37 minutes.
Phenomenal defensively. I mean, he like read so many of the Rockets plays. Like there was a clip where the Rockets had some horn set and Men Thompson like slipped the screen and Draymond Green just read it to perfection and stole the ball. Easy bucket in transition for the Warriors. He was phenomenal defensive. And people might see that dunk on Alperen Sengun, which was a sick dunk. I mean, that was on Draymond's head, no doubt. But Draymond was phenomenal, I thought. As a rebounder, trying as much as possible, trying to limit Houston's size on the glass. I thought at boxing out, just defensively as a whole, it was a phenomenal Draymond performance. I was really impressed. And also Jimmy Butler. Like, are we at the point where I don't think Jimmy Butler is even a top 40, maybe not even a top 50 regular season player, but he could be a top 12 to 15 playoff player. And when you have 2 of those, of course, Curry's top 5 or 10, whatever you want to say. When you have 2 of those guys, it's like the sky's really the limit for this team. I thought Jimmy was awesome last night too.
Yeah, and I think the gap between those two, and Sengun was clearly the best player for the Rockets last night. And probably you have to keep him there with the variance in Jalen Green, and the peak Jalen Green is still worth noting here. But the point being, the gap between where Jimmy Butler and Steph Curry is massive for the best player on the Rockets here, and it's tough to overcome that there. I do want to shift gears and bring up the Clippers and Nuggets series here. When talking about the biggest missed opportunity, it's hard for me to not look at the Los Angeles Clippers here. Now, granted, Kawhi did not play well. There was other things that did went. I mean, Jokic is who he is, but to me, this was absolutely a chance for them to steal game 1 in the opponent's arena. It went to overtime there, and by the way, it was a 2-point game. Wasn't as close as it seemed, as Norman Powell did hit a 3-pointer. Very thankful for all those that I'm sure were betting the Clippers to cover, as that did make the difference there. But the Clippers led by as many as 15. They jumped out to an early lead. Denver was able to crawl their way back in and ultimately hung around enough to steal it at the end. So what were your biggest takeaways from this matchup, and how big of a deal is it, do you think, that Los Angeles dropped the first game?
Yeah, it seems like it was Los Angeles to win.
Yeah.
And so I was at the Knicks game, obviously. So this game was right before. So I had to rewatch it yesterday. So I didn't even catch it live. But everyone was texting like, OMG, oh my God, Westbrook, oh my God, Westbrook. And it's like, you never know what that means. Like, that could mean like Westbrook did something phenomenal or did something really stupid.
And this game is the clearest example of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh my God, Westbrook. It's like when you see like, oh my God, Curry, like, you know what that means. Like, oh my God, Westbrook could mean like anything. So
Sure.
I rewatched this game yesterday. And of course, it was a classic Westbrook game, like a massive 3 where the Clippers were just doubling off Westbrook completely, leaving him wide open, which I get the idea in principle. But when I watched that back, and they were doing it a lot in overtime, those double teams were so obvious. Like they were doubling to go to Jokic and to go to Jamal Murray when he had the ball at the top of the key. Like there were such obvious double teams that they could read and make easy plays. Like you want to disguise your double teams a little better. I get in principle double teaming off of Westbrook because he's obviously not a good shooter and not a great scorer at this point of his career. But there were such obvious double teams, it felt like they were really ineffective. And Jokic and Jamal Murray read them to a T, and Westbrook took advantage. And that's what happened on that final, or one of those final plays when Westbrook hits that big 3. And then, of course, you have the final play of regulation where Westbrook he had a wide open 3, turns it down, throws the ball
off the guy.
Throws the ball off with 3 seconds. Like at least shoot the ball. Like why are you throwing it off his foot? But so I do think the Clippers kind of blew that game, I'm not really concerned because I had this series going Clippers in 7, and
Sure.
game one's just one of those games where it's kind of a feel, and then you make adjustments. I think Ty Lue is as good of a playoff coach as there is. Even though I didn't love the doubling, but look, I'm gonna trust Ty Lue because he's a phenomenal proven winner. What was more interesting, not necessarily the Westbrook experience, it was the fact that Westbrook was in the lineup at all. Because we talked about this earlier, but Michael Porter Jr. was just benched. I mean, he was horrible, 3 points in 24 minutes, but he was benched, and he was not in that clutch time lineup. It was Jokic, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon, Christian Braun, and Westbrook. And usually MPG would be in there over Westbrook. And I don't know if that's going to be a trend the rest of the series, but the Nuggets are going to need their supporting cast, including Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, who had 21 points, but not an efficient 21, 7 for 20 from the field. They're going to need those guys to step up in a major way. And so it's pretty impressive that Jokic had a classic Jokic game, but nothing special. And the supporting cast didn't step up. And the Nuggets still won. On the Clipper side, Kawhi had James Harden was phenomenal. Kawhi has to be better. Like he has to just be one of these guys who's scoring 25 to 30, like even 30 plus a night. And I don't think he was great in that game. He was fine, but I don't think he was great. And the Nuggets were doubling him a lot. And I think he kind of struggled reading those double teams and struggled.
I was about to say that, yeah.
So yeah, I still think the series is going 7. I'm not going to change off the Clippers, but it was impressive that the Nuggets pulled this out.
Yeah, Kawhi struggling with the double teams, I kind of think was a big story of that game. And that's not something you expect from a guy who's a 2 times finals MVP, who's been around as much as he has, who should have seen it all. Now, I get in theory and in practice are different things, that obviously he knows how to break down a double team and read a defense when they're throwing things. When it is coming at you at that rate in that moment, it's a difficult thing to handle there. So I think he'll be better than he was in game 1. Kawhi Leonard is still Kawhi Leonard, but very surprising to me that was one of my bigger takeaways of that game. The Russell Westbrook experience, man. I mean, 34 minutes. He shot 5 of 17 from the field, finished with 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and was a +7 in the win. I also love the final play really of kind of forcing the steal off Harden there. That to me is the Russell Westbrook, but you got to take the good with the bad. And we saw all of it on full display here. I commend Adelman for benching Michael Porter Jr. I don't know if I commend him for giving the amount of leash that you did provide to Russell Westbrook, because he makes some good things happen. He makes some bad things happen. And even on that last play, what I thought was a coaching decision that does deserve criticism, when they ran the 2-man set with Jokic and Murray, the obvious safety valve was Westbrook there. That was the open play. That can't be your guy in that case. If that is the design you're going to run, and you should be, have enough common sense to think they might be throwing a double team at one of these guys here, you got to have, even how he's playing, on Michael Porter Jr. or somebody that it's Christian Braun. Give me a capable shooter that can make things happen, or I trust a little bit more as a decision maker than Russ. That to me was also a sort of a failure on the coaching standpoint.
Yeah, I'm 1000% with you. And they played a night, so quick turnaround.
Yes.
I think the Clippers win pretty big. I just think they're going to go back, watch the film, and realize that they kind of blew that game. I think they're going to disguise double teams better. And I don't know if the Nuggets are going to keep closing with Russell Westbrook. I mean, we saw, obviously, like you just outlined, we saw the good with the bad, but I think you have to, you're going to need Michael Porter Jr. in this series. So you have to give him a longer leash. And look, he was horrible in the Minnesota series last year, and that's a big reason why they lost. He shot 37% from the field in that series and averaged 10 points a game. And that was a big reason why the Nuggets lost to Minnesota in 7 last year, because again, Jokic's help didn't show up, and Jamal Murray wasn't great in that series either. You're going to need Michael Porter Jr. in this series. You just are. He's your third leading scorer throughout the season. You have to give him a longer leash. And look, if he's not playing defense, and when he starts not hitting shots, you see his effort kind of dwindle a little bit. And he
Jokic calling him out a little bit.
Yeah, he did.
And deservingly so.
Yeah, and so you if your effort goes down, the benching is warranted. But I think you're going to need him in this series. But for tonight, I think the Clippers win, not huge, but I think I could see them winning by a margin around 10.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. I do think that they get their bounce back. This is going to be a series, man. We've talked about it going in, that I would be pretty shocked if this was anything but 7. I think this is going to be one that goes back and forth, and we get the other side of things tonight. So it is a 1-point spread. Clippers favored by 1, -118 on the money line on DraftKings Sportsbook. The over-under set at 217.5. Would not be shocked if it goes under that either. It did go over because of the overtime period. They were right around, I forget what the exact number is, but would have been comfortably under if it were not for that. Only cleared it by 2 points, even with overtime there. I did want to make sure we hit on the Lakers a little bit here. So the Timberwolves ultimately producing a 117-95 victory. Felt like Minnesota hit every shot in existence in that game. Was this a game that changed your opinion of the Lakers from a overall playoff or series perspective here, or just a bad start?
So I had Lakers in 6 originally. I'm not gonna veer off the Lakers to win the series, but I think it's in 7 now.
Okay.
I was pretty surprised how unprepared and just the lack of intensity and focus and effort from the Lakers. Like we knew the Wolves had the physicality and the size advantage, of course, because the Lakers primarily play Rui at the 5, and that's an incredibly small lineup. And we know how big the Wolves are with Gobert at the 5. So I was pretty. So that wasn't that shocking, but like when you outline all the stats, like Minnesota's bench outscored Los Angeles by 30. Minnesota had 12 more points in the paint. They had 19 more fast break points. They had 14 more assists. And that was a big thing. It's like Luka Doncic only had 1 assist. The Lakers were playing a lot of a one-on-one basketball and weren't moving the ball, and it wasn't a lot of off-ball movement. It was a lot of guys just kind of standing around watching Luka Doncic do his thing, watching Austin Reeves do his thing, even though he struggled a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced that the Minnesota's going to win the series still, but you're going to see an energized Lakers group because that's an ugly film session they're about to go through with JJ Redick calling them out, and he did post game with just their physicality and their effort, and like you expect that when you have the size disadvantage. But it was really just like an all-around effort thing for me, where it's like, this is game 1 of the playoffs, and they didn't feel like they knew that this was actually the postseason, not just one of the 82 games in the regular season.
Yeah, and there's 2 ways to look at this. I kind of went into the series with the belief that this would be a foot on the gas mentality of LeBron, Luka, knowing the importance of if we can win this series in as few games as possible, save the legs, make it a run. I also think there's a little bit of wear and tear from what a push this second half of the season has been. It has been an all gas, no breaks as they've fought for playoff positioning, fought for seeding. Both these guys, I'm sure, are banged up dealing with stuff. LeBron, for sure, in that category here. So was surprised by the lack of intensity, and that's something that I'm going to have a close eye on for the second game here. Also do want to note, like, they pulled the plug on the Jackson Hayes experience very quickly. He played just 8 minutes in this game. I understand Jackson Hayes
for good reason.
Yeah, I get it to an extent, but I kind of think like you just have to have somewhat of a real deal center body, at least for stretches in this game. So I would like, and again, he played bad. He was a -11 in 8 minutes, had just 1 point and 3 rebounds there. I think they need to go back to Jackson Hayes, and he personally has to be better for them to really.
I think it's a really tough decision, and they're in a really precarious situation because, again, like you said, they are really small, and the Wolves are just killing them with their size. So you need to play a bigger guy like Jackson Hayes. But let's just be honest, like Jackson Hayes is bad. Like he's just a bad basketball player. I don't even know if he's a backup in this league, if we're being honest with ourselves. Like the Lakers need him for the rebounding and physicality against the Wolves' bigger lineup, but he can't like what is Jackson Hayes good at? He's not good at a short roll playmaker when guys give him pocket passes.
Yeah,
he's not. He can't really create. He can't really create in the short roll, which the Lakers could use a guy to do that. And then he's not really that great of a finisher. Like we say he's a lob threat, but he's not that great of a finisher around the rim. And he's not some like special rebounder. So it's like, yeah, they need him, but JJ Redick obviously sees that and doesn't trust him. So it's like, how am I supposed to play him when he's that ineffective when he's actually in the game? I want to talk about the other big for a second, though, Rudy Gobert, who I thought was going to be played off the floor in this series. I thought he was amazing. Luka Doncic took advantage of switches when Rudy Gobert switched out on him. But other than that, he really stopped LeBron. LeBron was not doing a good job of attacking Rudy Gobert's switches. So I was impressed with him defensively. He did a good job of guarding in space and forcing tough twos, even when he was in drop, in a lot of Austin Reeves ball screens, when he was in drop on a lot of LeBron James ball screens. There was a couple times that we got caught in switches on both those guys, and he forced tough twos and did a good job guarding in space, which was the big concern. Like they consistently targeted him and only played around 25 minutes or so, but I thought he did a really good job guarding in space. So if they're not going to take advantage, and Luka Doncic is the only one taking advantage of those switches, and they don't really play Rudy Gobert off the floor, like, because I thought there was a possibility the Wolves were going to match Lakers small ball lineup and say we can't put Rudy Gobert at the 5, but they said no. Like you have to match us. You have to match our size, our physicality, our length, and the Lakers couldn't do that. And I was impressed with Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, Rudy's always a guy that people love to pile on when things are going bad and doesn't necessarily get his flowers when things are going good. So shout out to him for stepping up and doing his job. I did see a quote. I've blown forgetting where I got this from, but as far as like analyzing talent from an NBA perspective, speed creates, skill capitalize, and size prevents. And out of those three, that third one is the most difficult to
Yeah.
evaluate. That having a guy that cuts things off more than the impact is actually shown. That's Gobert in a nutshell there. And I know people for years have spit out the defensive metrics and what he provides from that angle there. But I do think like at this point, to be directly honest about it, Gobert gets a lot more hate than he does the actual praise when he does get the job done.
Yeah, and to that point, it's like the Wolves are always consistently a good 3-point defense. It's not necessarily because of the perimeter defenders, even though they do. It's how they can guard, and you can guard with a different style when you have such a great rim protector around the hoop. It's like you can be way more aggressive guarding the 3-point line because on these drives you have a menace down there in Rudy Gobert. So he deserves credit for 3-point defense, even though he doesn't get that recognition. To your point with size prevents.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was impressed with him. Really, what it comes down to is like Austin Reeves has to be better. Like him and LeBron didn't even score. Neither of them scored 20. They were combined 13 for 31 from the field. Like the Lakers have the 3 of the 4 best players in the series. But if 2 of those guys don't consistently play like it on a nightly basis throughout these 7 games, they're not going to win. And I thought Anthony Edwards was he wasn't really efficient, but he was pretty good at attacking Austin Reeves because he struggled defensively a lot. They tried to hide Luka, but they put Luka in a bunch of action too. And Anthony Edwards did a good job attacking him. And so that's their whole plan, is getting those guys to guard because they have weak perimeter defenders. And so this is going to be an interesting matchup. But like whatever JJ Redick's adjustments are, whether it's just like he even said it, there are no adjustments during the game. He had an interview. He said there are no adjustments. We have to play harder and more physical. Like obviously they're going to make some adjustments, but that's what it really came down to.
Yeah, no, I do think you're right about that, and he's right about that there. Now, the last question before we get fully wrapped up here, in regards to the blowout. So the Cavaliers over the Heat, 121-100. The Celtics over the Magic, 103-86, which that is a game that the score was a bit closer than the actual game itself. And then the one that was as drastic a blowout as you will really ever see in an NBA playoff perspective, the Thunder, 131-80 over the Grizzlies. Out of these 3 series, does any of the team that got blown out have a chance of picking themselves off the mat to win a series or even a game?
No. No chance. The Magic will get a game in. I was pretty impressed with Paolo and I mean they were up at halftime. And just like their offense just won't be able to keep up with the Celtics, but their defense is we know what they are, how they just have great wing stoppers. And, that's obviously what you need to stop the Celtics. A lot of great one-on-one defenders, and the Celtics' whole offense is beating guys off the dribble and creating drive and kick opportunities when they get 2 on the ball. And the Magic have great wing defenders and one-on-one defenders to prevent a lot of those dribble drive penetrations, but they just can't keep up offensively. I think the Magic could get a game, though, with just when the Celtics go cold from 3 one night. The Grizzlies don't even deserve to be in the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. Like,
might be more embarrassing to lose like that than to miss the playoffs completely.
100%. I would not even want to be in the playoffs at that point. But again, like people are complaining about that blowout. The Thunder, based on the regular season, are a historically great team. Like this is a historically great team
and hungry
against a team. Yeah, against the team with a historically great team with a lot to prove, like you just said, against a team that's not really that good. So I think the Thunder sweep there, and the other one, Cavs Heat. Eric Spoelstra is always good for one game, so I could see that going 5. But not a lot of major takeaways. Those winners are all, which is only 3 series really, where the winners are foregone conclusion.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. And my number one takeaway, I don't think Memphis can sniff even competing in a game is sort of that was as dominant of a game that you will see from an NBA playoff perspective there. So before we wrap up here, the 2 games tonight, you're on Clippers getting their bounce back, and you think that the Knicks cover the -6.5?
Yeah, I think the Knicks cover. I think the Clippers cover. Two of the best series are tonight. Those games. I'm glad we have that quick turnaround. I want to see how Jalen Brunson's ankle responds. That's going to be very interesting how much, especially later in the game when he takes a bunch of falls and everything. That's what you saw in that 4th quarter. It's going to be hard to get through a huge playoff run, and not that many people expect him to get past this round, but when he's playing on a bum ankle. But he's obviously, like I said earlier, as tough as they come in this league. So we'll see how that responds. Let me ask you, which team down 0-1 are you most confident in? If you had to Lakers?
Yeah, Lakers would be my answer. Clippers a close second, but I certainly could see Denver winning that series. I still think like it was a really bad game one for the Lakers. To me, that is a wash their hands, pick themselves up, and they'll be fine moving forward. So the least amount of panic in the Lakers loss for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Clippers they're actually the better team overall, even though the
Yeah,
Nuggets have the best players. So I'd say Clippers won. But I'm with you that I'm pretty confident Lakers are going to respond. I think both those series go 7. I also would throw the Bucks in there just because we
sure.
expect Dame to come back, like maybe game 2, probably game 3 latest. So I think the Bucks are going to make that series pretty competitive. Are there any redos if you had to any team that you picked to win a series that you would want to flip right now after game 1?
I think you're trying to pigeonhole me into my Detroit Pistons take here, but I'm not going there yet. I still feel I'm not going to overreact over one game for any of these series just yet. Still feeling fine for the way I'm sitting on each of these, but surprising. Like I think probably the gaps are a little bit wider than I expected with some of these top end games. Like I think when looking at like the Memphis and Oklahoma City, like that's probably like the first and
Yeah.
18th best team in the NBA or something around along those lines. So kind of crazy how big that is probably my biggest takeaway.
Yeah, I would say the pace. I obviously picked the Bucks to win. The Pacers, because I just don't know exactly what Dame's going to be when he comes back.
Yeah.
His fitnessing, his conditioning, all that stuff, and when he's going to come back. If they're already in an 0-2 hole, it's going to be hard to recover from. So if I had to flip right now in one series, it would be the Pacers. I'm still confident in the Clippers. Still have a good feeling about the Lakers. But it would probably be Pacers if I had to flip on one.
Pacers just got a lot of guys, man. The
They do.
Nemharts, the Naismiths, like these guys just come buzzing in and make impacts. Ben Shepherd, I love all like it's a deep roster there. So yeah, Indiana's
And they
the real team.
defend like this Pacers team
Yeah,
last year. Remember, like they couldn't defend at all. They've been a top 10 defense in the league over the last 2 months. The Pacers actually defend now.
yeah, 100% there. So any other final thoughts from the opening round before we get signed off here?
I don't think so. I think this is as good as the first round gets. We're gonna have a lot of really competitive series throughout. Like I said, Clippers and Knicks tonight. But yeah, this is gonna be an awesome next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. So we're going to be on top of all the action right here on Fox Sports The Gambler. Myself, Sean Barnard, and Sam Oshtry. Keep it on top of everything in the NBA world. Keep it locked to us here on The Gambler. Don't go anywhere as Sean Brace will be back on the other side breaking down a little bit of who knows what he's got today. NFL draft, more NBA talk, MLB, the Phil's playing. I'm sure he will get into it all. So keep it locked. Subscribe wherever you're listening, and we'll be right back next time.